Oh, hello. Welcome back. We'll bring you AM Business every Wednesdays, proudly brought to us by EcoBank, the Pan-African Bank. So make a date next Wednesday. Right now, though, let's focus attention on Parliament. We're talking about the Appointments Committee, the vetting that will start later today. We know the National Security Minister Designate and the Health Minister Designate will face the committee. We want to have a conversation on the back of this and try and do some analysis since the two gentlemen appearing before the vetting committee, they've been at the various positions before. Kandapa, for instance, was first appointed back in 2017. There were a few controversies that came up. Many people thought that that would lead to his resignation. He would be sacked or be forced to resign. But that didn't happen. He remained the National Security Minister. And of course, he's been reappointed, going through vetting to see if he will be the minister, the substantive minister of the sector. We'll look at how far we have come with him as National Security Minister. And then, of course, we'll go to the Health Minister Designate as well. Let me introduce Chukwuemeka, Dr. Chukwuemeka, as Executive Director of OneUp. I'd like to say good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us. And a member of the Coalition of NGOs in Health, Mr. Isaac Ampoma. Gentlemen, I'm grateful that you could join us.
Good morning.
Hello, Dr. Chukwuemeka Eze, if you can hear me.
I can hear you very well.
Okay, great. Thank you. And Mr. Isaac Ampoma, can you also hear me, please? Okay, I think we may be having some challenges there. We'll deal with that. But let me start with you, Dr. Eze, and the National Security Minister Albert Kandapa. The Minister Designate will be vetted today. I want us to look at the role that he's played. But first of all, let's look at the national security position, that role. How crucial is that in Ghana's national or security apparatus? Where does it stand, and what crucial role does it play?
I think it's a very important position, but more important for me is how we begin to frame the issue of security. The first thing to acknowledge is that there is security challenges around our region, and that also, of course, includes Ghana. And the reasons are very obvious and, of course, also varied. So appreciating that is also to begin to frame what kind of security architecture that we need in a country like Ghana. And for me, the first approach or first appreciation is the understanding that security, 21st century security challenges in Africa cannot be addressed through the hardcore security alone. And once that framing begins to take place, then it also now informs the kind of security architecture that we need to put in place to be able to address the security challenges.
You remember in the aftermath of the Ayawaso West Wagon by-election violence and the committee that was set up to look into the matter, I guess we all did agree in the end that our security structure was not very well defined. In the aftermath of that, has there been any concrete in terms of, are you able to place how we are structured security-wise?
I think there are too much emphasis on the hardcore security, and that's at the detriment of the structural causes of conflict. And I think that in this dispensation, it is important to begin to balance the two. Of course, hardcore security is very important because it provides the states with that latitude to prove that it has the power, it has the monopoly of violence to be able to control dissenting voices in the communities. But then to also sit back and ask some critical questions about why is it that what we see happening in the society is happening? Why is it that we are having youth restiveness? Why is it that we are having youth violence? Why is it that we are having crime and criminality? Once we're able to answer those questions, then we begin to think in the direction of how do we now resolve the structural issues. And I think, in my opinion, there has been more emphasis in ensuring that the hardcore security takes preeminence.
Okay, so what should we ideally be focusing on, if you can break it down further for us?
I think that when the whole idea about human security needs to take preeminence rather than just state security. And here I'm looking at how we can use the meager resources in the country to begin to address citizens' welfare, to begin to look at industrialization, to begin to look at youth employment. I feel strongly that once we are able to tackle the root causes of this violence, then it makes even the hardcore security unnecessary. But so long as we focus on hardcore security, then it will even become more difficult for either the police or even the law enforcement agencies or even the national security or minister to deal with these issues. And in my opinion also, I think that what we also need to do is to consider security as part of the development agenda of the country. And once we do that, then we can now integrate the security architecture within the context of the development agenda of the current administration.
I'll come back to you in a little bit. Just stay with me. Let me move to Mr. Isaac Ampoma, who's a member of the Coalition of NGOs in Health. Ms. Ampoma, I hope that you can hear me now. Good morning to you. Okay, great. Can you just reposition yourself? I could hear you, but it's a bit faint.
All right. Is it better now?
Okay, absolutely better. Thank you so much for your time. I'm talking about health with you because the health minister designate is also appearing before that vetting committee. But let me start off this way. COVID-19 has exposed us. I guess it's just exposed everything that some of you have been talking about for many years now. But now we're seeing the realities of the gaps in the health sector. Let me start off by asking you to help us appreciate the kind of health sector that we have. It's a loaded question, but if you can make it very brief for me.
All right. Thank you very much. Yes, I think COVID-19 has also come to add on the already existing challenges within the health sector. Over the years, the country has done well to move a bit better than other neighboring African countries in terms of healthcare service delivery. Chip system are also helping. Access to healthcare is easily available. Quality is a subject that we all need to start. COVID has become part of the vaccination sector, which of course we are all proposing that the nation get vaccinated and see how best we will all be protected from COVID. As talking about vaccination, we also have some vaccine hesitancy campaign going on. Some of these areas we also need to do some advocacy to ensure that vaccine is life and vaccine is good. So in future, when the government brings the vaccine in, there may be some reactions, some antibody reactions. However, majority of vaccines is life, and we should all mobilize ourselves and move on. I would like to see from the health minister telling us as to what specific activities and programs that will be laid out when the vaccine comes in, and what mechanisms are also going to be put in place when, of course, there are some advocacy that the vaccination has to be free. Initially, COVID vaccines were of a very high exorbitant charges. Local communities were finding it difficult to even pay and do voluntary testing. So the issues are there. When you come to the vaccine arena as well, Ghana is also transitioning from the Global Vaccine Alliance. So very soon, we as a country will need to pay for our vaccine. What are some of the mechanisms? What are some of the reprogramming activities that the Ministry of Health, Ghana Health Service, is going to do? What also are the collaborative mechanisms between civil society, religious leaders, and the media are also going to work together to help. So a lot goes on within the health industry. So
Okay.
maybe I'll leave it there for further.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Dr. Chukwuemeka Eze, this minister was first appointed back in 2017. How would you rate his performance over the last 4 years?
I think an assessment will be unfair on the minister because we have not benchmarked him on certain indicators that will give us that leverage to be able to assess him. However, I think that for me, what is important is what needs to be done. I think that for a start, there are key institutions in the country that the minister designates, if confirmed by the parliament, need to work with. There is the National Peace Council, which is the if you like, has the convening power on peace and security in the country, and which everybody in Africa as a whole have come to acknowledge as best practice. I think the minister needs to work with the National Peace Council, needs to work with the think tank, many of them in Ghana, very well established, need to have that kind of coalition of think tanks that can now begin to design what the security architecture of the country should look like. Then we can now begin to now say these are the kind of things that if we see, we know that the minister is performing, so that at the end of every year or at the end of the 4-year term, we can now assess him on the basis of those indicators. For now, it will be unfair on the minister if I provide a generic assessment of him on the basis of the security climate in the country.
But if he sits at the top, and we've had many security issues, I remember when his private video went viral back in 2020, there were people who were not even concentrating on the core job itself, but just the video alone. They thought he should have resigned on that basis. For him to be given a nod again, in fact, for him to have remained in that position during that time and for him to be given the nod again, it means he's really important to the president and the course that the president wants to go on this time around. But I'm just looking at why we can't assess his performance in the last 4 years and why that will not be fair.
Well, like I said earlier on, assessment is supposed to be scientifically computed. And therefore, at the beginning of the tenure, we could have had indicators that if we say he has performed in these indicators, we can assess him. It is very possible that the president had those indicators, and on the basis of those indicators, whether he scored low in some areas or scored high in some areas, he took an average and probably considered him fit to be reappointed. Again, also understanding that cabinet of the president also have to do more with the people that he has confidence to carry out his agenda. So if the president has that kind of level of confidence in him, irrespective of whatever criticisms might be coming from the public, then it means that his weaknesses, which everybody has, probably is less, far more less than his strength. But also, there is also the aspect of continuity in ministerial appointments. I think that's also a huge consideration. Probably there's a traction that he has been taking, so that kind of trajectory that he has taken over time probably is what the president want to continue, since he has understood the challenges and he's ready now to strengthen the areas of weaknesses and provide a better result. So it's a combination of several factors. And like I said, it's difficult for me to assess him. Probably it's very easy now if we have benchmark under which we can assess him. But on the past performance, it is difficult because security, again, is a combination of many factors beyond just the National Security Ministry.
Okay, great. What are you hoping that the vetting will bring out in this minister designates this time?
I'm hoping that it will be robust, it will be thorough. Questions around the security situation, the security climate in the country will be asked. Questions around the role of Ghana within the ECOWAS region as the current chair of Authority of Heads of State and Government will be asked. I'm also confident that the minister already is thinking in that direction and probably will provide those kind of vision under which he will be assessed at the end of his tenure. And I'm also hoping that we can institute now an annual appraiser, performance appraiser scheme that can enable the civil society actors to engage the national security minister in robust discussion about his performance and what he intends to do in the coming year, rather than leave it until the end of the term.
Dr. Chukwuemeka, we'll leave it here, wait for the vetting, and hopefully we can have a conversation afterwards. Thank you very much. Let me wrap up with Ms. Ampoma, if you're still with me. So I see that you focused on the issue that we're dealing with today, the pandemic, and you talked about the vaccines in your earlier submission. But we have many other things that we're confronted with today in our country. What are you hoping that the members of the Appointments Committee would ask the minister that will be satisfying to us citizens?
Right. Thank you very much. It's true. There are a number of issues confronting us. I would like the health minister and, of course, the security sector to also look at health and pandemic as a security threat to human movement. So what are the collaborative instruments that they are all going to put together in ensuring that this country is safe in the pandemic and in the course of the pandemic? What can we, both ministries, do together, and what can civil society also play to ensure that collectively we grow this country together? Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, sir, for sharing your thoughts with us here on the AM show on JoyNews. There's a second leg to this conversation. Parliament has shut down for some 3 weeks. They've recorded some COVID-19 positive cases. In the chamber itself, out of the 275, they've got 17 positive cases. But the staff, the general staff of Parliament, they have over 150 cases. But before we get there, we want to bring you a conversation with the first Deputy Speaker of Parliament, who also chairs the vetting committee that will be doing the vetting later today.
Well, at the committee level, we try to consider and use some arrangements, which are the ministries that are in urgent need of a minister. Now, there's pressure on us to rearrange and bring the education minister because of COVID-related issues in schools and so on. So I'm going to consult my ranking member and discuss if we can rearrange to bring the education minister on the first day as well. But that's how we did our arrangement. Looked at national security. Now this is COVID period. Minister of Health is important. Then we consider education and so on. And then after that, we come members of parliament, seniority, and so on.
So when that consultation be done to ensure whether we are going to rearrange together today?
We are in talks every day. The leadership of the committees discuss matters as they come up.
So it's likely the education minister will appear before the committee tomorrow?
Well, I have to, because we've put out
the schedule already?
A schedule already. Changing and rechanging involved persons and their programs. So first, if I get the consent of my colleagues, then we'll talk to the ministers. Because of COVID also, we're looking at not staying too long. And so we originally decided we'll do 2 a day. But looks like that may take too long for government to be able to get its team to work. So we are reviewing some of the stunts. But in Parliament, we don't take unilateral decisions. We always make sure you get your other groups, other sides along with you.
I see. Normally, I see a lot of people supporting their candidate or their nominee. In area of COVID, are we still going to expect them, or there will be a cut-off point?
You recall that even last Parliament, the Speaker directed that no more than 5 people, and I had the responsibility to enforce that. I went through hell. Some of my colleagues did not agree with me, but once the rule had been made by Parliament, I go by it. I got into trouble with people reporting left and right that I'm frustrating their supporters and chiefs and so on, But this time we're going to be very strict, very, very strict. First, already Parliament itself, we have challenges.
Right.
And so even the press, we are restricting it to just the one who can take the feed and share with others.
I see.
Yes, because as much as possible, we want to reduce the risk to members and to visitors.
So, like, how many persons are you talking about here for a candidate?
Well, we expect the candidate to come alone to the chamber. We originally announced 5, but it may not be possible in view of the escalation of the challenges we have in Parliament. We may even reduce that at best, a candidate and a spouse.
All right, so the Bekwai MP, First Deputy Speaker of Parliament, Chairman of Parliament's Appointment Committee, Joseph Osei-Wusu, there speaking to Kwesi Parker-Wilson about the arrangement for the voting today. So now you know how that is going to go. We'll put up a post on Facebook later on. We'll run you through some of the questions that people are hoping that the members, the Appointments Committee members would ask the minister designates that appear before them for the vetting. But another leg of this conversation is the fact that Parliament has essentially closed. They've shut down for 3 weeks following surge in COVID-19 cases. Let's speak to Dr. Rashid Draman, Executive Director, African Center for Parliamentary Affairs, and also Professor Kwabena Safo-Kantanka, Senior Research Fellow with Odikro. Good morning, gentlemen. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you and good morning.
Dr. Draman, I know we have an unresolved issue, but that will be dealt with later. I'm grateful that the two of you could join me. I was thinking this morning, really, Parliament itself, in terms of the MPs, they've recorded 17 COVID-19 cases. Does that warrant a closure? I'll start with you, Dr. Draman.
Yes, Mama V. If you remember, I think a few days ago, I said, Parliament should close. And closing, actually, I didn't mean at the time that, the business of Parliament should stop. But we'll come to that. Even if there is one case of COVID, I believe what has happened in the last year in many workplaces, workplaces that are not as big as Parliament, that at any one time it has maybe more than 1,000 people in that space, because there are 275 members, and then there are about 600-700 staff of Parliament, and then you add maybe the media, you add people like us who visit Parliament for different kinds of reasons. So at every one time, there are more than 1,000 people there, and if you have a few members of Parliament and some staff testing positive, I thought that the right thing to have been done is what has been done yesterday, but this should have been done maybe a long time ago. I am surprised that the medical people in Parliament, as well as our medical people in Ghana, have not did not speak about this early enough and urge Parliament. Because some of us were just, we are not medical professionals, but we're just basing our arguments on what has happened in different parliaments and so on. To the extent that some parliaments have lost a number of members in many countries. And we thought that we shouldn't wait until we lose a member of parliament in our country. So I think that was the right thing the Right Honourable Speaker has done.
Okay. I don't know where you stand, Professor Safo-Kantanka. After all, some of the MPs themselves have been very indisciplined.
Well, thank you very much, and good morning to Dr. Draman. Well, I think that there's little we can say about the closure. Closing Parliament doesn't necessarily mean that the business of Parliament must stop, as Dr. Draman said, because there are other ways the work of Parliament can go on. In terms of going to Parliament physically, yes, you can restrict it in several ways, but we can also make use of technology, as is being done in some parliaments all over the world. As we speak in the UK House of Commons, there are two options. You can participate in parliamentary debate either physically or remotely. In other words, through some other means such as Zoom. Of course, it comes with several other implications. If you go to Australia, for example, they have had to review their standing orders, because some people are also asking questions as to what the standing orders say about the sitting of Parliament and all that. But of course, we also know that Parliament is a master of its own laws, so they can review the standing orders and say that, well, now from now on we can conduct business remotely. Some can stay in their homes, and a few of them can come to Parliament, and then discussions can go on, just as we are going to do with the appointment committee, the vetting taking place today. So I think that even though Parliament has closed, around this time I'm expecting the leadership to think about other means of engaging the MPs for parliamentary business. Parliament has closed for 3 weeks. I think that within that 3-week period, there's a lot we can do to discuss other things as to how we can conduct the business of Parliament through some other means.
But Prof, yeah, let me just remain with you and ask, so for the next 3 weeks, how much are we losing? Can we quantify that?
Well, in terms of quantification, I find it very difficult to put a figure on it, but we should know ordinarily, by common sense, we should know that we are losing a lot. So the business of Parliament has come to a halt. Parliament is not doing so much. We have laws to pass, we have engagements, we have several things that Parliament does. For example, in some places, you can always quantify how much you lose, even when you lose 1 minute at a job place. But we don't have that kind of system. So for me, by common sense, we need to understand that within that 3-week period, Parliament may have done so many things, passed some laws, engaged with the executive in terms of speaking to some other arrangements and agreements on what have you. It is going to reduce, for example, the speed at which the appointments committee can work. So within the period in which the ministers are supposed to be engaged, we are going to have that kind of a hit where we cannot engage with them as much as we want. So even though I cannot put a finger on how much we are losing, Mama Vio and I will know that if Parliament is not working for 3 weeks, that means a lot to us as a country.
Dr. Draman, are we not, by shutting Parliament down, we know that COVID-19 is such a serious case, but some of them didn't take it serious. You know, there was the issue of indiscipline. And I was just saying this morning that then we might as well just shut the entire country because many people have tested positive. Dr. Draman, essentially I'm asking, are we not encouraging that indiscipline that some of us exhibited by not isolating and still going into the chamber when they knew they had tested positive? Do I still have...
Yes, indeed. I mean, that was quite disappointing. I mean, the honorable members should know. Hello?
Yes, please go ahead. Yes, I can hear you now. Please go on. Apologies there. We just lost Dr. Draman. Dr. Draman, can you hear me? Or we've totally lost you? Okay, we're going to raise him. I want the perspective in terms of what other African countries are doing, managing parliaments and also this pandemic. But Professor Kwabena Safo-Kantanka is still with me. Odikro has done many works or research with the attendance of parliamentarians. Now we have a total closure for 3 weeks. Seriously, even when we expected them to go to parliament, we didn't have many of them showing up. So what work would they be doing now that they're off for 3 weeks, apart from the leadership?
Well, you see, that comes back to the issue of discipline that you asked Dr. Draman about. And let me add my voice to that. And some of us felt so disappointed because this is the leadership of this country. MPs are the leaders of this country, and so we look up to them. People look up to them. And then there are laws. They themselves have passed laws in terms of protocol to handle the COVID-19 pandemic. So if MPs themselves were not listening to the orders of the speaker, and those who have tested positive for COVID-19 were still going to parliament, that was very disappointing. And I thought that if that was how some of them were going to go, then I'll bluntly say that some of them didn't even qualify to go to parliament, because this is the leadership of the country. The second, for me, I consider parliament as the most important arm of the government, because they pass the laws and the judiciary will implement the laws, and then they have a responsibility to oversee the activities of the executive. So they are the most important arm of government. That is what I think. So it was very unfortunate that the MPs had to act this way. Now, this is where we are. The question tells me that we should be surprised that when MPs were asked to stay at home and not come to parliament, they were still coming. Because at a point in time, even when we expected them to be in parliament, they were not. Mm-hmm. And so that is the kind of irony, the very ironical, sarcastic in any way, if you like. And so for me, even when officially they were supposed to be in parliament, they were not going. Now they have 3 weeks to stay away by the orders of the speaker. What do we expect them to do? Hopefully they will go home and stay at home, and some of them will do their own businesses and all that. And that is why I have suggested that we should be looking at other ways by which parliament can engage its members to do the work of parliament within this 3-week period. So I don't know how much they will be doing at home, unless maybe the leadership decides that from time to time they can recall some of them for pertinent issues to be discussed. For example, if there are issues with COVID-19 and parliament has to take a decision within the next 3 weeks, what do we have to do? The leadership may have to invite some of them to come for discussion. They can do that remotely through some other means such as Zoom. JoyNews has been doing a lot of work through Zoom. We are here discussing it and everybody can hear us. So they can make use of that. But of course, it also comes with some security issues. In the UK, for example, they have designed specific software programs to be able to handle parliamentary business. So you can't just use any other system like that, an open system such as Zoom maybe, because we're also looking at the security issues. And if you're going to invite some other members to parliament to discuss one or two things or on Zoom, you're also looking at the issue of quorum, the standing orders. How many of them can you invite to come and conduct the business of parliament? So all these things will have to be discussed within the few days ahead of us, so that at least they can come back and do the business of parliament. So as a country, we can benefit from that.
Okay. Dr. Draman, hopefully you're back with us. Okay. Unfortunately. All right. Prof, I guess we will have to leave it here and see how this one goes. We'll be monitoring, what in terms of what they're doing, because some of them can still go back to the constituency and do some constituency work. So maybe we will come back to you in the future and talk some more.
Thank you very much.
All right, great. Professor Kwabena Safo-Kantanka is a senior research fellow with Odikro. Sadly, we had Dr. Rashid Rahman with us, but we lost the connection there. But let's go to Facebook, because we put out the questioning in terms of the ministers designated for national security and health who are appearing to be vetted today. And we wanted to know what kind of questions that you want them to answer to. So let's do it on Facebook and let's check out what you've been posting. If we have that, we can go through. Otherwise, I guess it's a wrap. Okay, so Yabua Benjamin, in an answer to the question, what are they going to do differently from what they did in the previous government? You've got a lot of questions. So number 2, are they going to yield to the will, hopes and aspirations of the people, or going to dance to the dictates of the appointing authority, or they're just in to satisfy their personal whims and caprices? That's a lot. What do they suggest should be done to them in case of non or underperformance or dereliction of duty? I like your loaded questions. Really, really important. Wisdom Jeremiah says they should ask Oforiatta all the excessive borrowings. What has he done with the money? He should show us. You have to wait because he's not appearing today. Raymond also has a question for Esla, who is not appearing today. She's created, if she's created any alternative jobs for the workers of the closed media houses. You have to hold on to your question a little bit. Randy says, are they aware some of them are COVID-19 positive? This one says they should ask him COVID-19 relief fund and the tracker. So who will this one be going to? Is it the health minister, or you're still talking about the communications minister? John says, all this is a formality. Whatever questions that will be asked wouldn't change anything. Thanks for sharing your thoughts. You can continue to send us messages on our Facebook page, but that's it for this conversation. Thank you for your company. Stay with us. We've got other interactions coming up.